Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I've got 102 for time, and I want to be mindful of your time. Thank you so much for joining Fourth Purpose this afternoon. I hope you have an afternoon cup of coffee. And I am Kristi Anderson with Fourth Purpose. And before I get started talking about the values-based wellness plan, I have some guests here with me today. And one of them I want to start with is my colleague, Tony Parker, who's the former commissioner of Tennessee Corrections. He's the sitting ACA president right now, and he is president of Fourth Purpose. And he's asked us to jump on with us this morning and share some words. And I'm going to let him go first.
All
Thanks
right.
for being with us, Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anderson. And, what a great opportunity to be able to speak to the people who are actually carrying out the true mission of corrections. Since my retirement, I miss that day to day interaction with people like yourselves and the people who are really doing the hard work in this field. I just wanted to talk a minute about staff wellness and how, for the last couple of years at least, it has really come to the forefront when you talk to directors across this country about being one of the major, if not the major issue in corrections today. I think we can all tie staff wellness back to the issues we have with vacancy rates and some of the issues that we have in our systems as far as staffing levels and whatever. But we've realized that the true mission of corrections on the best of days is a very complex, hard mission. And I've always said that the people who work in corrections, the people who serve the citizens and in this very challenging role are some of the best public servants that any state or any county could offer. But you have a very difficult job, and we know that, right? I mean, we work in this business, we know that. But so many people in the public and so many people in the legislature sometimes, and sometimes in the administration, does not really understand the stress and what all is required of correctional employees. I just want to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for your service and what you do. But thank you for attending this webinar and also just focusing on staff wellness. The directors I talk to across this country know that it's premier. It's something that if we don't get it right, I shudder to think what it's going to look like in 5 to 7 years. Maybe not that long for some people. We have a critical issue in front of us, and addressing staff wellness is going to be key. Let me say effectively addressing staff wellness is going to be key going forward to us and the Department of Corrections being able to complete their mission. Fourth Purpose has worked hard. I know Dr. Anderson has worked hard in putting together what I think is really one of the most relevant staff wellness training modules today for corrections. It really deals with some of the basic issues and those complex issues also that we deal with in corrections on a daily basis. So I'd like to thank Kristi, but also I just want to thank everybody on this call for being here and for the work you do each and every day. I miss working in that environment on a daily basis, but luckily my job allows me to continue to touch many of you. And listen, if we can ever help in any way at Fourth Purpose, please reach out to us and let us know. We value what you do. Our mission is to make prison a place of transformation. That is not possible without our great staff. So thank you again for what you do. And thank you, Kristi, for giving me just a few minutes to say this. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tony. I appreciate that encouragement. And I just do want to mention for the attendees, we will have a Q&A at the end if we have time, and feel free to put things in the chat, and Eric can turn on your mic at the end when we have questions if you have any questions for us. Like I said, I do have some guests with us in addition to Tony Parker, and you'll be hearing from them, leaders in Tennessee and in Florida. So you'll be hearing from them later. But I know if you're on this call today, it's because you are concerned about staff well-being. and maybe you're even involved in doing some of the training or some of the wellness committee campaigns in your state to help just build up your staff and address those wellness concerns. And if you're in that space, then you know one of the keys to resilience is to find things that give you joy and refresh you and rejuvenate you. So I just want to remind you about a few that I'm experiencing right now. Let me see if I can get my PowerPoint to work here. So it's just some things to just start the webinar off with that's just making me filling up my tank. Is I'm a brand new grandmother, so that's my granddaughter Elena May. And those are her parents there in the middle that we went to the LSU Tennessee football game with a couple weekends ago. So you see our house is divided. I'm from Baton Rouge, but I'm living in downtown Knoxville right now. So it's just been a lot of joy this last week with the Tennessee win over Alabama. I apologize if I have any Alabama fans on the call, but we're just having a good time in Knoxville celebrating that win. And just remind, this wellness topic is heavy, but we do have to remind ourselves of the things in life that really do give us joy. So back to our topic at hand with the wellness. I don't know if some of you heard about this Blue Ribbon Commission report that came out this week. So grateful for One Voice organization that conducted the hearing that led to this report. And if you got that and read that, I mean, it's just right along with what our values-based wellness plan is addressing. And these professionals that put in that were part of this commission report are the same ones, and their research is what I've been drawing from as I've been building out the values-based wellness plan. So just real grateful to have some resources that are free that we can put in the hands of state leaders, because we don't want any barriers that can lead to better outcomes with our staff. This webinar today is not for content mastery. If you're on this call to find out about the content of the training, then I just point you to our website where you can log in and review all of that material to your heart's content. This webinar is about how to implement these resources into your state department. And if you want content mastery, again, just go to our website where you can see the content itself. So this is what our website looks like. If you click there on the staff link, it'll take you to our staff page. You'll scroll down, you'll see our micro lessons. You just toggle over to full courses, click there with the values-based wellness plan, and then that way you can access all of the curriculum, download all of it, and use it how you would like. But if you want true content mastery, I encourage you to sign up for our instructor training, which is happening here in Knoxville, November 2nd through 4th. We have about 8 or 10 spaces left in that training. So if you want to be part of that, you can let me know, and I'll give you my email address at the end of this, and I can tell you how to get signed up for that. We will be having about 3 of those a year. So if you can't make this one in November, you could probably catch one later in the upcoming year if you're interested in that. So that'll be about content mastery. So just kind of an overview. I know if you're on this call, you're probably very aware of the research findings on our correctional staff. What was reported in that Blue Ribbon Commission report is right along the lines of what you're seeing here on your screen. This, the physical outcomes and the psychosocial outcomes of our staff is just very alarming. And we know we have to lean into this and provide some resources. And that's what I've been doing for the last close to 3 years now, is working on how to address these poor outcomes that we're seeing in our staff. But as Tony said, it is also linked to our staffing shortages. If we can't find answers to getting these staffing problems improved, our wellness initiatives are not going to go very far. So it goes hand in hand. We want to provide psychological hardiness and resilience for our staff, but we can't build them up enough to overcome just this chronic staffing shortage environment that they're having to work in. So we have to address the root causes that lead to the poor well-being outcomes that are also leading to the staffing problems. And like I said, it's just interlaced into those root causes that are leading to the staffing shortages. So if you are looking at using our values-based wellness plan, it does address these 4 areas: job burnout, hypervigilance, trauma exposure, and the humanization part, which is the mindset toward your job and how that affects your well-being. So those are the areas that we're really leaning into. This course is from a brain science standpoint, what happens to a person in their mind when they work in a malevolent environment, an environment that they're at risk for injury, violence, death. It's also an environment of manipulation and distrust where you always are filtering for lies. Every employee is in a power role, and what that does to a person's mind and how they have to draw from their values and beliefs to handle a power role properly. And then just the typical culture that we see in corrections is one of kind of fear-based rather than hope-based. And what does that do to a person's brain? So all of this kind of defaults us to that. It can default us to a punitive mindset if we aren't aware of the dangers and we're not leaning into the interventions to help us kind of overcome that slide to a punitive mindset. So we want to give our workforce the language for what's happening to them as they see that they're changing as they work in corrections. And then we want to give them interventions so that they can adopt better practices and a better mindset that lead to better outcomes with our staff. So our material, the values-based wellness plan, I have taken to describing it like this. State departments can interact with this material kind of at an easy, moderate, hard level. So an easy level would be kind of to plug our product, our portions of our content into campaigns that you're already doing. So maybe I have some people on this call that are over a wellness, maybe they're the wellness employee or part of a wellness committee or something like that. And these can be valuable tools and assets to plug into what you're already doing. To help create a culture of care where it's okay to care for yourself and to care for others, and to improve well-being that way. It's also great for people, departments that are creating kind of peer support structures. This is a great training for people that are operating in that role. So that's kind of an easy entry point, plugging it into what you're already doing. More of a moderate level would be to plug in the full training or portions of the training in your training academy. The states that you're going to be hearing from today are doing that. So how do we roll the values-based wellness plan out into maybe our new hire trainings or our in-service trainings? That's kind of that middle level interaction. And then the hard level would be, yes, rolling it out into your training academy, but then also working with the leadership in that state department to embed environmental cues so that you're reinforcing a healthy workplace culture that will lead to mitigating some of those wellness issues with our staff. So with that, I want to turn it over to our guests, and I'm going to start with my friend Jennifer Boyd, who works with the Tennessee Department of Corrections, and let her introduce herself and tell you about what they are currently doing in Tennessee.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. It is a pleasure to be here today. I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Anderson in the Fourth Purpose since she started to work through what values-based wellness look like. I'm not sure how far into it we came into the picture, but it has been just an amazing opportunity. I'm calling in from Tennessee, the great state. I'm actually in East Tennessee today, and the leaves are in peak color right now. It is a beautiful sight. I'm sorry to any of you who cannot see this. It's beautiful here at this time of year. I'm the Staff Learning and Development Administrator here in Tennessee with the Department of Corrections. I started in this department about 10 years ago, and actually right before COVID, Commissioner Parker, I will forever have to refer to him as Commissioner Parker and not Tony. It just sounds wrong to call him Tony. But Commissioner Parker appointed me to this position, and he, then he retired. And not only did he leave me, but I didn't realize truly the state of burnout and stress that our officers had. And I also didn't realize, and I don't think any of us could have, how detrimental COVID would have been to our department. He said it many times, and it's continued to be proven that our staff, the correctional officers, still had to show up to work every day. I mean, the nation was in turmoil. And, when you look at the amount of stress that our staff have, adding that COVID experience to the world did not help anything. And we have not recovered. I think everyone just values life differently now. And, but yet we still have a very difficult job of leading a corrections agency, and it's not easy. Dr. Anderson had asked me early on, congratulations on the precious baby, though, by the way, she is adorable. But we had talked about this several times. And, one thing that she wanted me to talk about was kind of like what's been unique to TDOC and kind of what we're doing to overcome the obstacles that we've had since we've implemented values-based wellness. And I'm not sure if our challenge is unique, but we want to make sure that this is a training that we implement correctly. We don't want it to be just another training. We want to make sure that it resonates with the staff, that it is something that people are comfortable talking about. And that has been a unique challenge for us. One important topic has been finding the correct people to be able to teach the material. Tennessee is such a large state, and it's about 9.5 or 10 hours from one end to the other. And I know that, Florida is no different than us, but we want to make sure that we have the most insightful instructors in place to teach this class, which is why we're excited to come to your T4T in a couple of weeks. So we had the privilege of working with Dr. Anderson in the values-based wellness in the beginning of the rollout of it. But obstacles in understanding the topics has probably been our biggest point of concern at this point in time. Not from our leadership, but just around the people who we have brought through the T4T classes. People understand when you say trauma and burnout and stress, they understand those terms, but they don't really understand the side effects from those terms. They don't understand like how their behaviors might be indicative of being burned out, or that they have some unprocessed trauma, or that they have PTSD. Those are some things that they don't really understand. So it's been kind of difficult for us to find the right facilitators for that. We kind of had an idea and a plan rolled out on how we were going to go and disseminate this across the state, but we've had to take a step back on that after we've done 2 T4T classes, because of those classes, we just had probably about 3 people in each class that we felt like we were comfortable enough to go out and teach the material. So that's another reason why I'm very glad that we're coming to see you in Knoxville in November. And one thing that our staff say when we talk about, being burned out and what causes you stress and trauma is people want to tell us what causes those things. And we know what causes those problems. It's inmates, it's staff, it's long hours, it's supervisors, it's the complexity of dealing with gangs, all of those things. And frankly, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. We can try to get you relieved from shift to get you more time off. We can try to really be disciplinary, have disciplinary actions towards supervisors that we know are bad, but we cannot create a better inmate for you. And we can't, and prisons aren't going away. So, all the research talks about what causes these obstacles, what causes stress, trauma, PTSD. And that's great information, but it doesn't tell us what to do about it, which is why I'm so thankful for this material, because it teaches officers the signs and symptoms and how to overcome them. I don't think as a society, and not just in corrections, but we just haven't ever taught those things to people. And so specifically, in the couple of times that we've had our T4T classes, some of the additional obstacles that we've come through is understanding how to better get the message out there, help our staff to understand that trauma, PTSD, stress, burnout are killers in our department. They're unavoidable. We all have faced them at some point in time in our lives, but there is hope. And it's okay to talk about it. And I know that that's a message that you deliver on a regular basis. It's okay to talk about how a traumatic event that you've experienced at work affects you differently than it does other people. And we have to break down those barriers. We bring awareness to the signs and symptoms. Of course, that's our number one goal. We want to create a culture that says that gets away from saying only the weak are affected by what goes on in the prison every day. And what we found in doing the T for Ts is that people who have worked for the department for longer than 5 years have seemingly developed a way to overcome the obstacles of trauma, stress, PTSD, all of the components that we're talking about here today. And they think that they don't need the additional assistance. So if they don't need the assistance, then other people shouldn't either. And that's not okay. Just because I'm good at something doesn't mean that everybody else is good at something. So in the T for Ts that we've talked about, we've had some very poignant conversations. One of our goals and discussions is to look at really focusing on those officers that have been here for longer than 6 months, but less than 2 years, because that's where the biggest problems, if I felt like starting with officers that have been here before 6 months would be helpful, I would. But I think until you've experienced the difficulty in working in the prisons, they're really not going to be able to understand the components of it. Another thing that we know to be true is that when we sit down on the interview panel to interview correctional officers, of course we do it, every prison's doing it daily almost, and you tell officers, hey, by the way, all of these things are going to happen by taking this job. You know, you have a higher rate of divorce, you have a higher rate of trauma, PTSD, heart failure, high blood pressure, all of these components. And if you lay that out to them and say, are you still interested in this job? They all will say yes. 99% of them will say, yes, I still want the job. So giving people this information is not, we don't have to worry about power of suggestion. They know what this job causes. And you don't have to be afraid to tell them that they're stressed or burned out. They know. So we're still going to be able to hire people regardless of the effects of the job, but we want to make sure we have the healthiest of people. I mean, my number one goal is to make sure that we have the healthiest, happiest workforce that we can have. You know, life is short, and we just want to make sure that we want to be a department that is leading the way in healthy officers. Now, I know a lot of states have implemented components from Desert Waters. We haven't done that yet. So I'm super excited to see kind of how we can maneuver this training to really be embedded in the culture of who we are. We have staff who are wholly committed to the prisons. Like I said, they'll accept the job and come and work in the prisons regardless of the side effects, and for community supervision as well. And so we owe it to them to be wholly committed to their health and well-being. So we have regular conversation with our staff about the components that we talk about every day. We've done a couple of training for the trainer classes. Of course, we piloted the values-based wellness back at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And then one other component that we're going to do and implement as we move forward is we're going to make sure that we have a clinician in all of the classes when it comes to the trauma and PTSD portion. That's one thing that's really important to our executive staff, is that when we talk about those pieces, we have somebody readily available to deal with those officers who may be triggered. I mean, it is not normal to see the things that these officers see on a regular basis, but we've kind of conditioned them to think that it is. So we want to make sure we have somebody there available for them. I appreciate this opportunity to be here today and to talk to everyone. I appreciate the partnership that we have with Dr. Anderson and the Fourth Purpose. And I just look forward to being one of the first states to really make an impact in this by this material, and just, you know, having a healthy staff, and, you know, to be a department that people long to work for, because, you know, we put the health of our staff first. So that's it for me. I appreciate it again, Dr. Anderson. Nice to see you, Commissioner Parker, and to hear your words. And at this point in time, I will turn it over to John from Florida. Thanks.
Well, good morning, or good afternoon if you're coming from Florida. First, I hope nobody's offended by my background. I was excited for Tennessee, Kristi. It's been a long time coming, but I don't know. I hear y'all got some fines to pay.
Just a little.
Yeah, but it was worth it, I guess. For those that I have not met, my name is John DeBella. I'm the Bureau Chief for Professional Development and Training in Florida. I know, and please excuse my casual appearance, I'm kind of on the road. I'm actually in Mississippi on the way to Houston. I have one of my assistant bureau chiefs, Gabe Simpson, and my operations review specialist, Hope Fronick, on the call, and I'm encouraging them to jump in when we get to this point. I promise I won't go too long. I am 33 years into the business, actually started in latter part of '89 as a correctional officer. So when I saw the Fourth Purpose program come onto the horizon, I was a little worried that it was another program du jour, but I'm here to say that that is not what this is, and Florida has embraced this extremely well. The collateral damage behind working in this profession is not only environmental, based on the internal and external factors of the environment, that what goes on inside the prison on a day-to-day basis, and getting folks to understand that when they walk through the gates, they're in the inmates world, not the other way around. So understanding those stressors and the psychological and physiological effects is huge. But this is a pretty significant undertaking, and I'll rely on Gabe and Hope to jump in when they hear the bell go off. And that is, this is a massive cultural change. And I think Dr. Anderson has hit the nail on the head with regards to, and Jennifer just spoke about it, with being able to change the culture and raising your hand and saying it's okay not to be okay, to undo the unwritten code of silence that correctional officers and law enforcement officers in general have with regards to addressing their own well-being. And I think it comes to the understanding that we are so consumed with taking care of other people that we do not do a good job of taking care of ourselves. So the three of us that are on the call from Florida are not only excited about the program, but we've kind of hit the ground running. We did an introductory overview for our Trainers Institute during our Trainers Institute in August, and introduced this. Now, mind you, the size and scope of the Florida Department of Corrections is quite large, with 50 institutions, and you can't actually name a county in the state of Florida that doesn't either have a major prison, a road prison, an annex, a work camp, or a community corrections office in it. So based on the size and scope and 23,000 employees, that is a tough message to cascade to the entirety of the population and not miss somebody. So we kind of had to put our heads together with how we were going to do this. We really enjoyed, Hope and I enjoyed the time that we spent up in Knoxville to get this program introduced. And we had some extremely viable conversations with regards to who the target audience is and when. We went back to Florida and basically put our heads together and said, we're going to introduce this early in the game, because looking at the entirety of our population, we've got some older folks that have been around the agency for a while, but we're also losing folks through attrition early in the game. Part of that is due to staffing and retention problems, the lack of coaching, mentoring, and guidance that's going on in the middle levels of leadership along the way. So we're introducing it in the academies in a shortened version, introductory. To that end, we have already started, to use Kristi's term, saturating the market with the micro learning videos in multiple venues. They're running in our academies. They're running in circuit offices and central office buildings on our virtual monitors through True Digital, just to start to get that message planted, for lack of a better way to say that. So there will be an introductory version in the academy during that 13 weeks. It won't be the full modules, but it will be high-level overviews of all 4 of the modules, and all of the information in there is vital. When we came back from Knoxville, Hope and I actually had gotten heads together and went through kind of page by page on what we were doing and what we could add to it. And I had submitted some information back to Dr. Anderson with regards to statistics from Florida that bore out exactly what she was trying to point out. and that is the collateral damage. We had done some surveys in the institutions with regards to the burnout and the stress and the alcoholism, and it is evident in some of the reports that we get from the population, the staff population, with increased numbers of DUIs and arrests, as far as the other end of the spectrum, even staff suicides. So it has to be something that's introduced with new staff. We're developing a main primary model that will be cascaded down from the executive leadership all the way down to the training staff in the field to be able to facilitate that. We're addressing who those primary presenters are going to be to continue to give this credence, because I think the worst thing that we can do is invest a significant amount of time in this and not give it the weight that it needs, but better than that is to provide continuity for the program. It can't be here today and fall off the stove tomorrow. So we've developed 3 models, which is the new version for the academies. There is an initial that's going to probably time out to, hope we got it at 24 hours.
The initial, yes, we're looking at somewhere between 16 and 24. I think we'll know better after we teach it that first time.
Absolutely. And then there's going to be an annual in-service component that will continue as a mandatory training topic as part of of each of our individual profiles, whether you be certified institutions, community corrections, non-security. Because if for a minute that anybody on this call thinks that this is just a collateral damage, or the psychological or physiological effects only affect security staff, mistaken. So we are extremely excited. I know I talk a lot. I'm gonna let Gabe and Hope jump in on this with regards to their reflections. I know Hope and I came back from Knoxville charged up, and those two are going to be headed to Knoxville in a couple of weeks. And looking forward to that. But I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the hard work that you put into this program. I think it's going to be extremely viable. And our finished product, we're excited the direction it is taking. Hope, Gabe, what do you got?
Hey everybody, I'm Gabe. I know it says John DeBell on there. I think it's because he forwarded the link to me. But obviously I'm much more handsome and humble than he is. I'm really excited to get involved with this. Dr. Anderson and I got to speak a few weeks ago, and it's clear where the passion is at. And I will tell you just a little bit about myself and this type of instruction. 17 plus years on the job, most of it in uniform. I came out of security as a captain. In fact, and that's where Hope and I actually have a connection there. Our families overlap in the small communities that we're from. But teaching a lot of desert waters. In fact, I consider myself the primary instructor for the agency right now, myself and Jeff Mortham. And when I got access to the fourth purpose, kind of like what John was saying, there's a little tepid approach there for a moment when it was like, well, what do we got? Who's trying to sell us what this time? And then seeing that there's kind of this for us, by us approach, and kind of a balance of passion for those that need help, but also an acknowledgement of our experience is helping drive the connection. And for me, I heard, I think it was Ms. Boyd say something to the effect of talking about instructors. If we don't have buy-in with the appropriate instructors, then the message will be lost. So that's something that Hope and I and Chief DeBell will be working diligently on, is identifying the right messenger. But what's exciting for me right now is with just exposing some staff members with some of the fourth purpose videos and the micro-learn sessions. I think we've got some new blood and some fresh energy in the agency. So we're going to see this kind of 19 and 20-year-old population start to drive some of the change in culture here in our agency. Because too often we get some of these kind of dinosaur correctional staff members, and I'm probably guilty of this as well, where we have like a trauma measuring contest where it's like, well, I saw 3 suicides last week and I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while the guy bled out. And the other guy, is going to try to one up them. And so we're just measuring this horrible traumatic experiences. And if you've never been inside prison, you'd never even be able to relate to that. But a new phrase that I heard when 2 dinosaurs were talking recently was funeral fatigue. And so we've got these 2 correctional sergeants. So actually, I can take it back. They both had recently made lieutenant. They were a sergeant when I first got to know them. And it was, well, during COVID, I got so tired of trying to decide which funeral to go to. And they're brushing off the death of their coworkers as something as simple as, I couldn't decide which football game to watch on Saturday. And then the other guy started to say, well, at least you got to go to a funeral because I had to work. I was working 16 doubles in a row or something insane. So the fact that Fourth Purpose is going to allow us to directly address those staff members wherever they're at in their career, whether they're that fresh blood or whether those dinosaurs, I feel like the messaging right now is going to allow us to target any one of those. So I'm excited about it. I've been kind of backseat. Chief and Hope have been obviously interacting quite a bit, and I just really look forward to jumping in. I really appreciated Mr. Parker's opening remarks. I feel like he's obviously been there, done that, probably has the authentic battle damage to prove that he knows what he's talking about. But either way, Hope, I know she's my right hand. So whatever she's doing, I'm going to probably have to agree with. So Hope, what you got?
I think for me, coming back a couple months ago to Knoxville and getting introduced to this program initially, a lot like Gabe said, because I am a Blue Courage Heart Math instructor. So when you've done some, it sometimes can feel like you've done all, but I most certainly walked away completely mind blown and real excited to come back and roll this out. But skeptical on, just like everybody else is struggling with, who is going to teach it. And I think until we each build the individual programs and continue to collaborate and work together, we may step outside the box and have to put on our thinking cap and maybe find somebody that you would least expect or someone you never thought about before. That will be the biggest challenge, I feel like, for us. I am excited to come back in a couple of weeks and see you guys again and walk through this some more and hear what's worked, what's not, just your ideas in general on how we can bring this back and really make it big and impactful.
So just to wrap up Florida, we are not going to let our size and scope of our agency kind of overcome the value of this program. The 3 people that you've heard from Florida today, there's an absolute ton of experience. Myself with 33 years, I appreciate one of the terms that I've heard come out of Fourth Purpose, and I think it is critical that we keep this going, and that is the recognition of probably the change from the term PTSD to PTSI, and that is a recognition of the damage that occurs on the job. This is on the job injury that we have to address. And if we don't put some good skills and mechanisms in place early in the game, then all we're doing is addressing wounds after the fact. So we appreciate the opportunity as a state to be here. And Kristi, I just appreciate the work that you guys have put into an excellent product. I told Kristi that we in an attempt to try to address the real goal of this, actually changed our name of our product to basically mind shift, changing the way that you do time. Because if we cannot get their head wrapped up around what they're going to see and experience on a day-to-day basis, Gabe led into it with, our staffing patterns right now. We've got folks that are doing day after day, double after double, go home, sleep, and repeat. And there's just so much collateral damage behind it. So again, Florida's grateful. Thanks, Kristi.
Thanks so much to all of you. You guys are rock stars. You're really, really the heroes here. I do want to mention that both Florida and Tennessee are they're speaking from the training department standpoint, rolling this out as part of their training for their workforce. And again, I know that maybe some of you on this call are not in that role, but maybe in kind of that wellness role or something in the human resources realm. And I will do future webinars talking about from that angle. But I do want to open it up that if there's anybody on the call that would have a question. And I think, Eric, I believe you can see that. So if anybody has a question that wants to put their hand up, or yeah, I think you can put your hand up and then we can turn on your mic. And I will be sending this recording out. As you've heard the different training professionals speak, no plan survives contact with the enemy. I mean, there's always going to be hitches and things you have to figure out when you're starting to implement these resources in your state. And that's what I love about these guys, just being transparent about how they've made it work or how they're still figuring out how to make it work. I really appreciate, I mean, I'm learning from them, and this is why I wanted them on this webinar. When Jennifer, who by the way is a freshly minted Dr. Boyd, very proud of her, just finished up her doctorate degree. So we're celebrating with Jennifer. Yay! Just the things I've learned from her about them bringing in one of their mental health employees to be part of the trauma module. Things I've learned from Florida about how they're merging this with some other content that they've developed. And this, gosh, I'm growing so much as we just work on this together. We're trying to save lives and bring healing to our workforce and build them up. And it's going to take all of us just sharing best practices and going forward with this. Let's see,
Kristi, can I make just a couple comments if we have a few minutes?
Absolutely.
So, congratulations, Jennifer. I knew you were working on that, but congratulations. I had no doubt. And thank you for the great job you're doing in Tennessee, and just your commitment. I knew that was a perfect fit for you, and you're just doing such a great job, and I appreciate it so much. I also wanted to comment on Florida. Ricky Dixon, I just want to talk just a few minutes about Ricky Dixon. Ricky Dixon is one of the most dynamic leaders I know. He's a really out there in the front. You see videos of him in the facilities, in the community, meeting lawmakers, meeting the workers in the Florida Department of Corrections. And I've talked to Ricky on several occasions, and he truly cares about his staff, as most directors do. But I've just been so encouraged with Ricky's leadership there, and he's just doing such a great job. And I just want to thank Florida DOC and the people that spoke this morning. It's obvious that you all have a true commitment for solving these issues and your true concerns about the staff and the work that we do and the environment we do it in. So thank you all for that. I also just wanted to take a minute because it was mentioned earlier about the price of this. I want to talk about Josh Smith for just a second. Josh Smith is the founder of Fourth Purpose and really the individual who, through the grace of God, has set this up and made this all possible. Because without Josh and his being willing to take what God has given him and putting these funds together for us to work and for Kristi to work, make these training modules free to anybody that needs them. That's just a blessing. And he won't say that, but I will. And it's just a true blessing. And I just want to publicly thank him for what he's doing too. So, and that's all I have, but thank you all.
Thank you, Tony, for bringing that up. I appreciate you giving him a shout out, because I am so grateful to be able to do this work thanks to his generosity. Well, if there are no questions, I do want to close with just, let's see, just one more thing. Let's see, should be, yeah, okay. I really think that this is for such a time as this, for us to really leverage what's going on right now in corrections to make very significant changes that we've worked in this industry, we know that change has needed to come. And just this tipping point of the staffing shortages and the awareness of the wellness issues, I think it's really bringing people to the table to talk about solutions. And so I just appreciate everybody who got on this call, because we are trying to lean into this and make a difference. We're trying to give a language to our workforce to what's happening to them and how they can have better outcomes. We're taking them seriously. We're taking their work seriously. And we're trying to leverage we're in a post-pandemic recovery, and a lot of states have seen salary increases. So we can leverage that. There are more changes coming that we're talking about in the ACA world. But I really believe that people are actually motivated to find long-term solutions to this staffing problem. So they're willing to listen, that when maybe in other times that they weren't. And I just want to make sure to give you my contact information, because I'm always open to hear people's stories and hear needs and see how you can even be a voice into what we're creating in the future. So my email is there, my phone number's there, all of our social media channels are there. And if there's any way the Fourth Purpose can serve you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And that's really all I have. Just a big shout out and thank you to my guests that were on today.